to our interview series with PW Education. Your extensive leadership in academia, design, and policy, spanning institutional innovation, course architecture, and strategic thinking, brings invaluable perspectives to today's conversation. We look forward to diving into your insights on transformation, collaboration, and the future of learning. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Amazing. Amazing. So, Dr. Sinha, I would love to begin with you first. The very first thing I would like to go back in the past and ask from Boring Road in Patna to the Bay Area in San Francisco, when you first moved to the US with your parents, your sister encouraged you to explore the region, and that's when you first saw Stanford and Berkeley. You mentioned being so fascinated at that time that you briefly regretted not having studied at those universities. My question is now in 2025, when you look at the landscape of Indian higher education, how do you perceive the growth and global standing of Indian universities today?
Vishal, the truth is that that incident refers to about 45 years ago. And the sad truth is that we don't have a Stanford or Berkeley in India today. In fact, Stanford and Berkeley would probably undoubtedly across multiple rankings and assessments be rated as amongst the top 10 universities in America, amongst the top 10 universities in the world. So that's a high benchmark. But even if you went lower down, even if you looked at the 100th university in the US, I don't think that we would have a university in India today that compares with those. We've made a lot of effort, but somewhere we've not been able to crack the code. There's been improvement. Our challenge has been that we've had to provide access. So we've been focused much more on expanding. And as a result, we've not been able to focus on quality and focus on building quality in the institutions that were already high quality. The world has moved really fast and much ahead of our best institutions, which haven't kept up. So if you look at it from the perspective of the question you asked, unfortunately, the situation is quite grim. And my worry is that we are falling behind. Now, China is making great strides and we would further fall behind. So we are all making efforts. I mean, places like Anant and other universities and institutions that I've been involved in, Sanjeev has been involved in, are all making an effort. We are trying to change the game for education in India, get our students in India to experience the quality, but we are not there yet. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. That's a very sad reality, and we all need to accept it and do something in order to bring that change. Dr. Vidyarthi, I would love to come to you now. I'd love to talk about the recent instance that given the worsening air quality, especially in cities like Delhi, it is evident that environmental degradation is directly affecting our daily lives. Why do you think awareness and action among students and the larger population still remain limited? And what role can universities play in fostering genuine environmental consciousness and responsibility among the next generation?
So, Vishal, this is a very topical question as the air quality in Delhi worsens every year, and now for several years on trot. I don't want to be defensive of what we have done as collectively as a society, but essentially this has become clear from the work done by scholars that this is a social question, and various components of our society and along with the political leadership has to sort of do this together. I think a great example of something similar that we have done pretty remarkably, not completely successfully, but to a large extent, is the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, where a notable progress was made in urban civic cleanliness across most of urban India. Now, this is similar. इसको अभी तक somehow we have not prioritized as a society.
mm,
There have been, this is well documented that environmentalism is usually a middle class supported project in most of the world. Even in the US, jahan hamara, Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, 1970s Maya, middle class was the biggest supporter of this. And that's true in India as well, that, urban middle class is perhaps the most vigilante and rightfully active on the environmental front, not so much um, the urban poor or our political leadership.
mm,
And that's where the larger social phenomena that all of us come together. Um, the second aspect of it is, which is directly concerned to your question, I think our students are increasingly, with every cohort, more concerned and educated about environmental efforts. अगर आप देखेंगे within universities, across all kinds of universities and across all kinds of disciplines, the so-called Gen Z is increasingly aware, and to the extent that people, young adults, have begun to have what they called episodes of climate anxiety, that they are actually worried कि अगर इसी speed पे हम चलते रहे तो क्या होगा. Universities have continued to play their role in this and would continue to do this. But remember, it's only a tiny fraction of the population that goes through
mm.
universities. Larger school population, I would say, is also on the same page in terms of being more sensitive. But it's a larger social question. ये हम सबको मिल के साथ करने वाली बात है.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that perspective, sir, and largely agree with that point. Dr. Sinha, education is often described as the act of lighting a spark, not merely filling a bucket. In your own journey, that spark seems to have been ignited when you worked on a project with Professor Nirupam Chakravarti and Professor T. Sundarajan, an experience that eventually led you to pursue further studies at University of Pennsylvania. How important do you think lightning that spark is, especially in today's rapidly evolving world?
Oh, I think this has been true for as long as the human race has existed and education
Hmm,
has existed. I think that we overemphasize the curriculum, the subject, the name of the content of a course. Uh, People are obsessed with majors, honors courses, specializations, and so on. And I think those are important. I'm not saying that you don't need a basic level of knowledge, foundational knowledge, and sometimes expertise. I mean, if you are going to be a journalist, then you need to learn the craft of writing and journalism. But I do think that the inspiration that comes from a great teacher
hmm,
uh, is almost necessary and is the sufficient condition for you to succeed. If you just go by the knowledge you gain and the credentials you have, you go only so far in life. You do the usual stuff. A great teacher truly holds up a mirror and sees in you things that you could never imagine you could do. Identifies your potential truly. You can't see your own potential. Okay? You are limited by your own experience. But with age and wisdom and having gone through their own experiences, many students, they are able to see that in you. And then they are able to spark. They are able to light that light. So I've been very fortunate. I mean, I think all things that people think are my successes have come from other people bringing those opportunities to me because they believed more than me that I could do it.
definitely.
Left to myself, I would have said, "Ye mujhse kaise hoga? I can't do this. This is not. I'm not this person." And I'm not trying to be humble. I think it's just the reality. You get overwhelmed. You say, "Oh my God, how am I going to go do a PhD? Look at my grades and what I have done and how bad my performance was academically."
Hmm,
But two people saying, no, look, you're making a mistake. Don't just settle for a software job that you can get anytime, but the opportunity to study now, the opportunity to build on what you have done with us is here and now. Don't give up on that. So I think today it is even more important because young people are being crammed with knowledge. They are arming themselves with multiple certificates, credentials, diplomas. But the world is changing fast. You need mentors.
mm,
Forget lighting a spark. You just need people to advise and guide you, because you don't know, with AI and changes coming so fast, am I relevant? What I have done, is it relevant? Is my experience, my education relevant? So I think this role of having a strong mentor, uh, some of whom can also inspire and ignite a spark in you, I think is even stronger today than it was there in my time. And I think it's the missing link and missing ingredient in a lot of educational institutions and educational factors in India.
So, discussing AI, I would love to come to the next question. That is from Dr. Vidyarthi. Dr. Vidyarthi, ANU offers a PhD in built environment design, excellence and creative practice, a program that fundamentally thrives on creativity, a skill that often defines success in these disciplines. With AI becoming increasingly prevalent, are you observing a decline in students' creative thinking, or do you believe that by embracing AI, they are in fact able to enhance and expand their creative potential?
No, great question, Vishal. Again, very topical, something we're beginning to see in educational institutions. Abhi, it is too early to say.
Hmm,
AI is still at nascent stages, but we sort of begin to see some outlines of the emerging terrain that might be more evident in times to come. But the way to think of this, and I guess this is important, and this is something that we reinforce at Anant time and again, is the notion that we don't want to forget the side कि जो टेक्नोलॉजी है वो सिंस द इमर्जेंस इन द लेट 18th सेंचुरी, मतलब अब 150-200 साल से टेक्नोलॉजिकल रिवोल्यूशन चल रहा है इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन के वक्त से. What they have done is they have always expected humans to learn a new kind of work. है ना.
hmm,
इंडस्ट्रियल रिवोल्यूशन में हमें फैक्ट्रीज में काम करना सीखना पड़ा. सो थिंक इंडिया में बहुत सारे फार्मर्स थे. वी हैड टू ट्रेन पीपल टू बिकम factory workers, and then we had to train people to become office workers, and now again the third revolution, we had to train people to become software architects and software engineers and so on and so forth, knowledge workers इनको कहते हैं. इस बार जो ये चेंज है, what this essentially is doing is turning it on its head and it's putting ourselves in the center of it and says here is knowledge, जो आप अभी कह रहे थे कि AI teaches, है ना. हम एकदम
hmm.
it's now about you as an individual because AI teaches. आप जो सीखना चाहते हैं, जिस चीज को समराइज करना चाहते हैं, AI actually is very good at two things. It summarizes knowledge quickly, existing knowledge, and second, it does a vast survey of knowledge, which is very difficult, जिसको हम लोग क्लासिकल रिसर्च की लैंग्वेज में लिटरेचर रिव्यू कहते हैं. It's
Yes.
but what it is actually doing is it empowering the individual to do now use all of that information to do better creative thinking.
Hmm,
ये दिस इज द कैच. इसीलिए गुरु की जरूरत है जो आपको सही मार्ग उस विद दैट नॉलेज दिखला सके. राइट. दैट्स द ब्यूटी
hmm,
ऑफ दैट टू लाइंस यू जस्ट रिसाइटेड. सो हम लोग ये रीइंफोर्स करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं अक्रॉस अनंत के कल्चर में, बिकॉज डिजाइनिंग इज द प्योरेस्ट फॉर्म ऑफ क्रिएटिविटी इन टर्म्स ऑफ डिसिप्लिनरी नॉलेज. रिसर्चर्स और डिजाइनर सबसे ज्यादा क्रिएटिविटी को यूज करते हैं. आई एम नॉट सेइंग बाकी लोग नहीं करते, बट एक डॉक्टर या वकील या चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट by the nature of their profession are constrained in terms of doing more creative work. They have to follow protocols and precedents, for example, more often than not. लेकिन designers all the वक्त creativity करते हैं. So we are integrating AI into our day-to-day teaching, into our day-to-day coursework, and asking our state students to be ahead of the curve and use this judiciously. वो बहुत जरूरी
hmm.
है. Judiciously use करें. It's like a knife, a knife can be used for both doing excellent surgery, saving lives, and for a lot of bad things. So technology की एक ये, and we can think of several technologies
Hmm,
जिसका आजकल इंडिया में गलत यूज और सही यूज दोनों हो रहे हैं. So we want to be very alertive of our students कि moral compass इसमें जरूरी है, and जो
hmm.
गुरु का मेटाफर है जो आपको सही मार्ग दिखलाता है और अंधकार को हटाकर प्रकाश, है ना, गुरु, someone who removes darkness, वो मेटाफर पे अनंत काम करने की कोशिश कर
Absolutely, absolutely. And it brings me to the last question, and I would request both of you to give your inputs on this. Ever since I began studying journalism, the MIT University has consistently held the top position in the QS World Rankings. Indian universities, however, have yet to break into the top 10, even in the Asian rankings. Beyond global recognitions, countries that lead these rankings also benefit economically from the influx of international students. In your view, when can India begin to see its universities feature prominently on these global lists, and what key changes are needed to make that possible?
विशाल, ये आपका क्वेश्चन एक ट्रिक क्वेश्चन है। ये ट्रिक क्वेश्चन इस कारण है क्योंकि इस क्वेश्चन से हम शुरू हुए थे कि प्रमथ की 45 ईयर ओल्ड जर्नी। मैं इसमें दो बातें कहना चाहूंगा दैट माइट नॉट बी डायरेक्टली एसोसिएटेड और आंसरिंग द क्वेश्चन, बट दे आर इंपॉर्टेंट एज द बैकड्रॉप टू टू सॉर्ट ऑफ मेक सेंस ऑफ दिस क्वेश्चन। नंबर वन इज कि मैं ऐसा मानता हूं कि हर जगह का एक अलग एजुकेशनल सिस्टम होता है। यूएस का एक बड़ा डिफरेंट एजुकेशनल एक्सपीरियंस रहा विच इज बेस्ड ऑन टेकिंग यूरोपियन ट्रेडिशंस एंड व्हाट वी कॉल्ड अमेरिकन इन्वेंशंस। अगर आप टेम्पलेट देखोगे अमेरिकन यूनिवर्सिटीज के, दे कम फ्रॉम यूरोपियन यूनिवर्सिटीज एंड दैट देन लॉट ऑफ अमेरिकन इन्वेंशन। ये उनका एक सिस्टम रहा। हमारा जो एक सिस्टम है उसमें जो बेस लेयर है वो हमारी इंडिजिनस नॉलेज है, वो बहुत वास्ट है। ये बड़ा 5,000 साल पुराना सिविलाइजेशन है, कंटिन्यूस लिविंग सिविलाइजेशन है, रीजनल और डिवर्स सिविलाइजेशन है। अलग अलग देश के कोनों में अलग अलग विद्याएं अलग अलग रूप में विद्यमान है, बड़ी पुरानी। एंड देन वी हैव ए लेयर ऑफ मोर लेटर ब्रिटिश एजुकेशन, पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस इंडियन एजुकेशन। सो ये कई सारी इसमें लेयर्स हैं। मेरे हिसाब से हमारा जो एजुकेशन का इकोसिस्टम डेवलप हुआ है वो बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग है, और वो ये है कि हमारे लोग भारतवंशी जिसको कहते हैं आजकल, वो वर्ल्ड की हर यूनिवर्सिटी, वर्ल्ड की हर बड़ी यूनिवर्सिटी के हर एकेडमिक डिपार्टमेंट में हमारे लोग हैं। I was myself, Pramath himself, and many of us are part of that larger group, if you can call it, the intellectual ecosystem of this country. So हमारी हर यूनिवर्सिटी में हमारे लोग हैं, हम एक साथ एक यूनिवर्सिटी में नहीं, सो एसोसिएशनल इशू है। दिस इज मोर ऑफ ए, आई मीन इफ एट ऑल हमारे को नॉलेज की कोई कमी नहीं। इफ वी वांट एन एमआईटी टू प्रोड्यूस नॉलेज, इंडियंस एज ए कंट्री और एज ए सिविलाइजेशन और एज ए सोसाइटी और एज ए पीपल हैव एक्सेस टू द कटिंग एज नॉलेज ऑल अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड, across all OECD countries, other countries, our own countries. So maybe that prevents us from creating one place, that's one. The second is more, I think, down Pramath's way of thinking, कि ये जो एसोसिएशनल लाइफ है जिसमें हम लोग ग्रेट कंपनीज बनाते हैं, है ना, हम कहते हैं ग्रेट यूनिवर्सिटी नहीं बना पाए तो हमारी ग्रेट कंपनी भी अभी, द बिगेस्ट कंपनी वी हैव फॉर्म्ड, बट वी आर राइट ऑन द एज, है ना। हम लोग इसको ये कहते हैं यू आर राइट समवेयर ऑन द कस्प। जो ये एसोसिएशनल लाइफ है जो बिल्कुल प्रमथ, आई थिंक द वर्ड, द फ्रेज ही यूज्ड, आई एग्री विद इट, वी हैवंट क्रैक्ड दैट कोड येट, but we are very close if our lens is to think of a great university along western lines to be created in this country. दो मैं समझता हूं कि in terms of knowledge, जैसा मैंने आपको कहा, हमें कोई कमी नहीं है। हम एसोसिएशनल नहीं कर पाए, अभी हम एक ग्रेट कंपनी नहीं बना पाए। इंडिया में हमारी बड़ी ग्रेट कंपनीज हैं, है ना। रिलायंस इज अ ग्रेट एग्जांपल, बिल्कुल पिछले 40-50 साल में। टाटा इज ग्रेट एग्जांपल लास्ट 100 years, एंड मेनी अदर, इन्फोसिस लास्ट 30 years. सो डिफरेंट काइंड्स, बट ट्रूली ग्लोबल वैसे ट्रूली वो नहीं है। दैट्स वन पार्ट। द सेकेंड इज, आई बहुत प्रोग्रेस हुई है, आई एग्री विद प्रमोद। मैं समझता हूं इट्स ए मैटर ऑफ टाइम। आई एम लिटिल मोर ऑप्टिमिस्टिक ऑन दिस। आई हैव सीन नाउ इन डिफरेंट पार्ट्स ऑफ द वर्ल्ड, आई बिलीव ये जो नई यूनिवर्सिटीज बनी है इस देश में, 21st century यूनिवर्सिटीज जिनको हमको कहना चाहिए, टू distinguish ourselves, and especially the universities which are working in the non-profit tradition. बहुत सारी universities for private sponsored for profit है, not those, non-profit, well-sponsored, well-funded universities, and you can name a few. Anant is definitely within that group. It's a small distinctive group, but this is a matter of time, because they are well connected with the larger intellectual ecosystem, एंड द जो हम इंडिया में वर्ड यूज करते हैं नियत, नियत इनकी बिल्कुल ठीक है. द इन ऑर्डर टू डू ग्रेट थिंग्स द फर्स्ट इज ट्रस्ट एंड नियत. अगर आपकी नियत ठीक है तो देन थिंग्स बिकम इजियर. सो आई डिस्टिंक्टिवली सी potential for these universities to do that work that meets the aspiration. But as far as knowledge is concerned, हमें really हमारे लोग सब जगह. So we gain from that knowledge all across the world. That I don't think is an issue.
Definitely. Even students are everywhere. If you see international students,
Yeah,
they're almost
yeah,
everywhere.
yeah. We're part of that larger ecosystem at various levels.
Definitely. Absolutely. Dr. Sinha, would you like to add on?
Yeah, I think I referred to some of this in the beginning, and I agree with Sanjeev. I would only add my two bits. It's hard to predict. All of these predictions are hard to predict because it's hard to predict when the actions that are needed to be taken will be taken. Uh, However, I think there's one, again, a necessary condition for success. And that is that we have to fix the governance and the leadership choice selection of these universities if we want them to be top class. What do I mean by that? Governance is how are decisions taken? Who takes the key decisions? Is there some owner? And that owner could be a business guy, a foundation, it could be the government. Is the decision left to a set of professionals who are involved, are trustees of the university, or is the decision taken by one individual or one entity? I think that's a big problem. If you look at
In
the
fact,
class universities of the world, who owns them? Nobody knows who owns Stanford and Berkeley since we talked about that. You may say that University of California is owned by the California government, but the truth is it's actually run by the trustees, which the government appoints, but then it leaves it to the trustees to run it. So I think that level of institutional building and thinking हमारे यहाँ लेटर में है लेकिन स्पिरिट में नहीं है. हम लोग उसको कंट्रोल करते हैं थ्रू द ट्रस्टीज, थ्रू द बोर्ड्स एंड सो ऑन. This is true for public and private institutions, by the way. Selection of vice chancellors, provost is also not completely professional and merit based. So I think that's another problem. और अगर आप टॉप यूनिवर्सिटीज में देखें तो एटलीस्ट दीज थिंग्स दे हैव फिक्स्ड, नॉट जस्ट यूनिवर्सिटीज, इंस्टीट्यूशंस. अगर आप ये नहीं फिक्स करोगे तो आप कैसे आगे बढ़ोगे? बढ़ ही नहीं सकते. तो दैट इज वन कंडीशन. द अदर इज कि हमें ये रिकग्नाइज करना पड़ेगा कि अगर हमें यूनिवर्सिटी को टॉप 100 में ले जाना है तो हमें 5-10 यूनिवर्सिटीज को सिलेक्ट करके उनको डिस्प्रपोर्शनेट रिसोर्सेज देनी होगी relative to other universities. Sorry, I hope Hindi is okay, but basically what I'm saying is that for a few select universities, you have to give them disproportionate funding, resources, support. This is what Russia did. This is what China did. This is what Korea did. This is what Japan did. This is what Singapore did. This is what Australia did. When countries have pushed certain universities, which you have to pick the winners and say, look, I'm going to support and drive, that's when people get to the top. Even if you look at this much talked about United States education system, Sanjeev was part of that for many years. A few universities get disproportionate amount of funding and grants, including from the government. The recent controversy, you will see the same names being mentioned. Why are they being mentioned? The Ivy League, the MITs, the University of California, University of Southern California, because these universities get disproportionate funding from the federal government. Other universities don't care and they are not affected. So there also, it's a bit of a elite system where those people are supported. Why do we always talk about Nalanda and Takshila? Yeah, they may have been the few universities of that time, but they got a lot of support from the donors and funders and the kings and wealthy people at that time. So these are the two ingredients, I think, to your point. What will it take for us to get there?
Mhm.
Many other things, but I think these are two important factors. One is governance and leadership. That has to be devolved to high quality group of professionals कि आप चलाओ and you run it and you pick your leaders. You pick your vice chancellor and provost. And the other is choosing winners at the expense of some who will get excluded. It will not be an equitable system.
Definitely. So totally agree, sir. Teachers have to be trained. It has to be merit based. And research definitely, right? Research again is one of the factors for the QS ranking. And if you see all the developed nations like Israel, US, China, they spend a decent amount of their GDPs in the research. Whereas if you see India, India only spends like 0.6% or something of the GDP for the research and development, which is I think a major factor. And even the private players needs to come in and help support the university. So I definitely agree, sir. And it was indeed a very insightful conversation with both of you.
Please come and visit Anant.
Surely, sir.
Zoom calls don't help you understand what we are doing. Building
Absolutely.
an exceptional institution in design, and you must visit Anant, meet our students, meet our faculty. It's a unique new experiment in design education.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. It's a pleasure to talk with you. Have a great day, sir. All the
Thank
best.
you.